We are talking about the movie The Atoning, written and directed by Michael Williams. I wonder when they're going to run out of these kind of spooky sounding one-word titles, but it doesn't look like any time soon. Anyway, let's talk about The Atoning. First of all, essentially this is a haunted house movie. It is a very slow burn film, so if you don't like slow burns, you can leave now. But let's discuss a little further. It essentially focuses on a small family, obviously 2 adults and a kind of child around sort of 10ish. And they're living in this kind of house and they're not getting along particularly well. The child thinks that the parents may be on the kind of the verge of divorce. It all seems rather tense. And there seems to be some kind of supernatural goings on in the periphery. There's just odd things happen from here and there. Nothing too outrageous. But halfway through the movie, there's a bit of a twist that will kind of change the dynamic of the movie. And then from that point, it kind of goes into a slightly different direction. And we see more of the kind of the supernatural side. So without giving the twist away, let's talk about what worked with The Atoning. I've got to say, the big standout for me is some of the acting here, particularly from 2 of the cast. But I want to give a special shout out to the young actor who plays the young boy here, Canon Bosage. Man, this kid has got some talents. I mean, he makes this role so sympathetic. I've got to say, I thought he was an absolutely outstanding actor. What a find. Very impressive, his performance. And the interesting thing here is the first half of this film, literally the first half of this film, is not a horror film at all. It's very much a drama. And, you know, you can imagine these kind of like, you know, families in discourse type movies that you've seen, nothing to do with horror. The first half of this film is like that. So he does a great job of really kind of selling the emotions, of really trying to be this kid caught in the middle of these kind of 2 parents that aren't maybe getting on all that well, and kind of, you know, very subtle attempt to try and kind of like appease both of them without kind of like riling them up and things like that. Very well acted. But also Virginia Newcomb, who plays the mother here as well, I thought was also a very good job here. A believable, grounded performance. Very impressive. Other good stuff. I think the twist is very good. It's not a twist that you haven't seen before. I don't think there have been a couple of movies where they've had the same conceit, but not that many. But it makes it so when you get to the halfway point for this film, the interest level will peak, and it's very clever the way they've done it. And you know, it makes you intrigued to find out what happens after that. And I'm going to be very careful to try not to give this away. But I've got to kind of talk about the negatives from that point. The main issue with this film, like I've mentioned from the outset, it's a very slow movie. And the first half of the movie, and sadly, is very dull. You're going into this movie expecting a horror film, and the first half is more of like just a relationship drama with some very kind of mild supernatural stuff just kind of going on slightly kind of in the periphery, like I've mentioned, but there's no real kind of like massive dramatic things that happen aside from maybe the prologue, but it becomes quite dull to watch, unfortunately. And even when we get to that kind of the reveal halfway through, which does pique your interest, it kind of again starts to peter off. Now, the second half of the film, we have a bit more on the kind of the supernatural stuff that kind of comes into effect. And we even see some kind of like demonic-looking figures. Clearly done on the low budget, but they kind of look like guys dressed up as cosplayers. Nightcrawler from the X-Men. For the most part, they keep in shadows, which I feel is to the benefit. But it's hard to tell you about this movie without giving anything away, but I don't feel there was much done with them. And even the second half of the movie, although I feel was a bit more interesting than the first, still doesn't really kind of like blow your socks off in regards to you know, the story essentially. Now, I've also got to mention some of the poor acting. Now, I wouldn't say there is some poor acting. None of this is a car crash, but the husband plays his character in a very kind of like monosyllabic way. He's very kind of just one note essentially, and because of that becomes a little bit unbelievable, especially when you have him next to such strong performances. And then we have this kind of supporting character, this psychic medium who comes into the movie about the halfway mark. And admittedly, she's only in one scene, but man, she looks like she's acting in a different film. She's acting like she's in some kind of like goofy horror comedy. But I gotta say, I think this film would have been benefited from being re-edited. The twist that comes, again, without giving it away, I thought, and this is me rewriting the film now, so I do apologise to the filmmakers, but to me anyway, the twist would have been better served maybe 10 minutes into the film. Because all of the interesting stuff could have been expanded upon, sort of, if that had been the vast majority of the film. Like we see that there's there could have been some great interactions with this other family, without giving anything away, that maybe that are kind of adjacent to this are kind of like main characters. That would have been fun to see, but we don't really get anything like that. We get one scene that involves this psychic, but it would have been great to really have some scenes that are kind of like a bit more interaction between maybe the two families. That would have been a lot more interesting. I did not think you needed half of this movie with all of this setup where nothing really happens, to be honest. And even the kind of the character stuff is very slight. There's no real kind of like reveals or kind of like big plot points that happen within that first half, really, that couldn't have been done in a kind of a 10-minute section, and then had the second half of the movie really kind of delve into what it actually opened the door to. So for me, this film kind of was a bit of a missed opportunity more than anything. And the frustrating thing, I feel, is that it does have a good idea, but they don't do enough with it. And then kind of the acting is so good as well by some of the actors as well. It's kind of let down by some of the other ones. So overall, it's a mixed bag. There's definitely some good stuff here. It's not a gory film. It's not a kind of like a particularly scary film, although they do that kind of annoying trope where, you know, you have something turning around and there's something kind of just as you turn around. And after about the fifth time I'd done that, I thought, okay, that kind of like cliche is becoming quite annoying now. But there's never really like loads of scares here, and the kind of the effects and the sound effects are quite good. I will say that. There's a little bit extra there. It's a good film for a character piece, but I don't think that's what it's going to be advertised as, to be honest. So I feel like the horror crowd maybe won't appreciate its kind of more character-driven moments of it, and I think there could have been more done with that anyway. So overall, I will say that there's some talent both behind the camera and in front of this movie, but maybe the story could have been a lot better. So I'll give this movie a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.